Fish habitat restoration often improves stream habitat for freshwater mussels as well as fish. However, the mussels must survive the restoration process in order to benefit from it. So let's talk about best practices. Freshwater mussels are sensitive to disturbance, and many species are considered at risk, so it's important to consider mussels when designing stream restoration projects. This webinar outlines the most pertinent information for fish habitat restoration planners and is intended as a quick reference for protecting freshwater mussels. First, we're going to discuss assessment, and then we're going to move into some ecological practices you may want to take into consideration when implementing restoration projects. Freshwater mussels are crucial components to aquatic ecosystems across the Northern Hemisphere, but over 65% of species are classified as either vulnerable, threatened, or endangered due to increases in human disturbances, poor development standards, and climate change impacts. Over the past century, 30 mussel species have gone extinct in North America, and half are not expected to survive the next century. Mussels are filter feeders and are thus exposed to floating particles such as algae and heavy metals in the water column. They're sensitive to changes and contaminants. If they're showing signs of distress or if populations are declining, it's a sign that something in the environment is affecting them. It is because they're filter feeders that freshwater mussels have phenomenal filtration capacities. The yellow lamp mussel, for example, can filter about a half a liter of water per hour per individual mussel. That's a lot of filtering. Their filtration capacity improves water quality for fish and all stream ecology. This filter feeding helps humans as well. Yellow lamp mussels are a species at risk, but they're plentiful in the municipal tap water source Pottle Lake. Surveys revealed that there are over 5 million mussels living in this lake, with each mussel filtering an average of half a liter of water per hour. The total population filters as much as 2.5 million liters of water every hour. It's believed that this is why Pottle Lake has the cleanest and most cost-effective water for treatment in the Cape Breton regional municipality, requiring only chlorination to meet drinking water standards. Many freshwater mussels depend on fish for larval transport. That means they depend on fish to complete their reproductive cycle. For example, salmon, brook trout, and brown trout are crucial to the life cycle of the eastern pearl mussel. Freshwater mussels discharge millions of larvae in late summer and early fall. This is how fish help mussels distribute their young. For more information on which species to be on the lookout for in your area, and for freshwater mussel identification, consult your local resources and check out the Freshwater Mussels of Maritime Canada flashcard guide. First, you need to determine if mussels are present at your restoration site. A solid look at the stream bed should tell you a little bit about what's there. We have created an easy-to-use survey to help stream restoration practitioners identify if live mussels are present, which areas of your reach supports mussels, what species of mussels are present, what is the abundance, and it can give you an idea of the age distribution of the population. Survey data sheet PDFs can be accessed for free at acapcb.ns.ca. These surveys were designed to help stream restoration practitioners to take freshwater mussel habitat into consideration at the planning stage. They're meant to be quick, to identify which species are present, if any, and to paint a picture of abundance. Consult with your provincial authority, DFO, and local mussel experts to harvest preliminary information in your area. If mussels are present, you can design a mussel-friendly restoration project. Projects should value mussels as integral to water quality in the stream, protect mussels from negative impacts, and relocate mussels where negative impacts can't be avoided. Populations should be monitored before, during, and after restoration. This also includes considering discontinuing plans or changing sites if the project would negatively impact mussels. For example, we at ACAP had planned to restore a series of digger logs that were installed more than 15 years ago. The ramps had degraded, and we planned to rebuild them, which of course requires movement of a lot of sediment, especially in a long stretch of 16 digger logs. When we surveyed the reach, we discovered a dense population of eastern pearl mussel, too many to relocate, so we surveyed the digger logs. They were still cutting deep pools, still introducing oxygen. We concluded that the digger logs, although older, were still functioning well, and that the dense population of mussels was contributing to great water quality. We made the decision to abandon the digger log repair and reallocated the time and restoration funds to another site. Always return displaced materials such as rocks or logs to their original locations. Avoid the elimination of mussel burrowing habitat like sand and gravel, and avoid complete elimination of host fish in isolated areas which are needed for mussel reproduction. Structures placed in the water should be unlikely to trap debris. In order to survey for mussels, you will have to submit a Section 52 permit. Links to the form, the email for submission, and the DFO link for more information can be found in the description for this video, as well as at acapcb.ns.ca. Don't let the permit application process deter you if you think you may have a significant mussel population at your site. The DFO contacts for permit submission are tremendously helpful and easy to talk to. If you find a species at risk at your site, report it to your provincial authority. If you're in Nova Scotia, email your sighting to biodiversity@novascotia.ca. Preliminary mussel surveys are done by conducting 15-minute sweeps on a 10-meter stretch of stream. Narrow streams should have 3 collectors, and larger streams should have 4 collectors or more, spread out in lanes across the stream. You should collect all visible mussels while walking 10 meters upstream during the 15-minute collection period. After you collect, you can spend time counting and identifying the species. After ID and measurement, mussels should be placed gently back into the water near the closest location to where they were collected to minimize stress to the animals. This is a video depicting the size and length differences of eastern pearl mussel from oldest to youngest. Take note of the differing lengths of their shells, as well as the many rings which can tell us their approximate age. Filling out the maximum length portion of the survey will help you to determine the age distribution of your population. This chart displays the criteria for decisions prior to fish habitat restoration work. The first question to investigate is, are there mussels present at my site? If not, continue your work as planned. If yes, then ask, can we design our project to avoid negatively impacting mussels? If your answer is no, the project cannot continue. If yes, we must determine if there are threatened or endangered species present. If there are species at risk present, they must be reported and special permits are required to move forward. However, if no, the restoration project can continue using the following mussel-friendly protocols. When designing projects to be mussel-friendly, assess the overall footprint of restoration activities that will be carried out and the impacts they could have on mussel populations. Avoid working in areas with mussels or the highest populations of mussels, maintaining a 5-meter buffer downstream from the mussel beds. The best option is to support them where they exist and only relocate if necessary. Work that disturbs the stream bed or leads to sediment transport, for example the installation of digger logs, can have a negative impact on mussels. You should plan to avoid creating impacts that affect flow, inundation, temperature, sediment transport, or substrate. You should also minimize bank disturbance using natural materials like native plants, brush mats, or root wads that allow sediment to fill in the gaps. The relocation of mussels should be considered only if the restoration work is deemed absolutely necessary and direct mortality of mussels cannot be avoided, or if the site area must be temporarily or permanently dewatered, or indirect impacts are expected to cause mortality. The best time period to perform dewatering, if it is necessary, is from August to November when the mussels are less sensitive. Please note, permits will be required for the translocation of mussels within your stream. Further permits will be required if your work involves at-risk freshwater mussel species. If you find yourself considering relocation, contact DFO, your provincial wildlife authority, and your local freshwater mussel experts. An excellent resource to consult for relocation planning is the Protocol for the Detection and Relocation of Freshwater Mussel Species at Risk in Ontario, Great Lakes area. Links will be provided in the video description. Some things you can do to minimize impacts are establish a minimum 5-meter buffer around mussel beds. Avoid constricting or increasing flow or velocity of water near mussels. Limit activities that involve recurring disturbances, like construction or deconstruction. This may mean minimizing and/or phasing the amount of time that disturbances occur. Minimize how long temporary structures are placed in the water, and confirm sediment is uncontaminated, avoiding flushing large amounts. The monitoring of mussel populations throughout all stages of restoration is important to assure that they are functioning healthily. Continual monitoring evaluates restoration effectiveness and the impacts on mussel habitat. Restoration sites can create habitat for mussels and should be monitored for activity. If water temperatures are high or mussels are exposed to air, they're likely in distress. Some signs of mussel distress are if numerous mussels are dislodged, lying flat on the substrate, or buried in the sediment, if they're persistently gaping and do not close tightly when touched, or if they're attempting to move away from the area. If any of these indicators are observed, break from work upstream to allow fresh water to flush the site. Consider your options for protecting the mussel bed. Discuss the possibility that the mussels should be moved away from the impacted area. ACAP Cape Breton has launched a project on iNaturalist to document observations of freshwater mussels on Cape Breton Island. You can join the project to provide IDs and to keep up with its progress. This project gives researchers a snapshot of our local and regional freshwater mussel distribution, so every contribution helps. In summary, freshwater mussels are crucial components to aquatic stream ecosystems. They're threatened organisms which provide an invaluable ecosystem service through filtering of the water column. The best option is always to support mussels where they exist and only relocate mussels if necessary. When conducting restoration projects, you must limit activities that cause disturbances which can cause distress. If you're in Unama'ki, report all mussel observations in our iNaturalist project. If you're conducting fish habitat restoration and you find threatened or endangered mussel species, pause your project and contact DFO and your provincial authority. This project was funded by the Nova Scotia Habitat Conservation Fund, contributions from hunters and trappers, and enriched by freshwater mussel specialist and Cape Breton University instructor Kelly White. Kelly encourages you to consult her regarding freshwater mussels in Nova Scotia and can be reached at kelly_white@smu.ca. We hope you consider mussel-friendly practices for future restoration projects. ACAP Cape Breton is located on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq of Unama'ki in Mi'kma'ki. Here's to responsible restoration practices on unceded land.